Well, our next guest, Naomi Zacharias, sees potential and beauty in girls whose cultures regard them as disposable. Naomi is the director of Wellspring International. She's the author of The Scent of Water. And Naomi, welcome. It's great to have you.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
What do sex-selective abortions tell us about humanity?
I think it's a very significant issue, and it's one that actually makes me really sad, because when we're talking about sex-selective abortions, we are talking about that it's the females who are the ones who are often the parents choose not to have the female daughter. And I think what it says about humanity is that, unfortunately, I think we haven't come quite as far as we would like to think we have in the area of women's rights, actually, and just valuing each human life and holding it, considering it to have intrinsic value as a human life, rather than measuring it by different ways, monetary means, and finding more value in males and females.
You have traveled to many places. Wellspring is an international aid organization that goes into some of the neediest places, but you've come to really understand those cultures that would have the girl child be a throwaway. What's going on there? Tell us what's pandemic in that culture.
Well, I think it's a very deeply rooted issue that probably needs so much time to dig into. But I was reading even recently that in India, where they've struggled with this issue for so long, they say there are 30 to 40 million missing women, is the way they put it, due to the selective abortion, where families were choosing to abort female babies. 30 to 40 million women. And of course, the effects on the culture are huge, both from a practical perspective, because it's altered the natural ratio of male to female. They say in a society where men and women are treated equally, for every 100 males, you would have about 103 to 105 females. In India, in some places, is looking at a reduction of about 90 women to 100 men. And what that ends up doing is you don't have enough women for the way things are carried out in society. There aren't enough women, and so there ends up being bride sharing. Rape and molestation has gone up. Trafficking has gone up. And so the practical effects in a society are significant. But again, I would still say the more significant issue we have to address is just that issue of what are we actually saying about the value of a human life.
You have other issues that are uniquely feminine on the value of human life, and in your book you write about bride burning. That your work at Wellspring has taken you into, again, another profoundly feminine issue. What is being done to stop bride burning? Maybe explain to us first what it is.
Yeah, the situation for bride burning, this is something that happens in India, and it's related to the dowry system. And the dowry system is actually technically illegal, but that is just not often enforced. And so what happens is when the girl and the guy get married, the bride's family pays a dowry to the guy's family, and it's agreed upon beforehand. And sometimes after the marriage has taken place, either the groom's family comes back and says, we want to raise the dowry, we need more money, or the bride's family hasn't paid what was agreed upon for whatever reason. And so the groom's family will say, if this isn't paid, then the penalty is that they will set the bride on fire. And it's usually the mother-in-law or the husband that does it, and they will literally douse her in kerosene and set her on fire. They say there's about 20,000 women who are reported cases of bride burning each year in India, but that's believed to be fiercely underreported. Many are reported as accidents, and some, of course, never go reported at all.
You wrote that in all of the horror of what you can see people doing to the vulnerable woman, to the girl child, to the throwaway child in the abortion issue, that God uses the scars that this puts on women. Explain what you mean by that.
I think probably the thing that has surprised me the most about doing this work, I knew that I was going into these very dark places. The thing that surprised me the most was I didn't expect to see such incredible beauty in the most unexpected places. And even in this story, I think one of just the most amazing women I've met was a victim of a burning accident. In her case, it wasn't bride burning. It was an accident when she was a child, but it burned over 60% of her body. And it's a very long story that I don't have time to share today, but she was crying in the hospital as a child, and I love the part of the story where she said she was crying to the doctor. She didn't want him to touch her, and she said, my hair is gone, and he said, if you'll just calm down, I'll give you my hair. And so she finally settled down, and she said it took her days to realize that he was bald and didn't actually have any hair to give her. But I think he was speaking from actually a heart of wanting to be able to do that for her. But she grew up and became a plastic surgeon and is one of the most well-known plastic surgeons in India, treating victims of bride burning today. And she just opened the first clinic in Ethiopia. She's trained in the U.S. And when I saw her, her face is still heavily scarred. And there is something remarkably beautiful about her. And it's not in spite of her scars, it's through them. And she said to me, she hopes one day, a dream would be that all these scars would be gone and she could be truly beautiful. And inside, I really felt like, why would you do that? Why would you make yourself less than you are? And I think the thing about scars is, yes, like they do tell you that something went wrong, but they tell you that she survived. They tell you that someone fought and they fought through and they were able to survive something awful. And if you are able to look at it in that way, and if you look deep enough, you will uncover an amazing story.
In all of our scars, that's your argument, is that look deep, and what you think isn't valuable, there's real value in there. You are convinced God is there even when the worst has happened to a woman. Why?
I think I would say both in what I've witnessed in the lives of women and even in my own life, in those situations that leave some of the worst forms of bruising. I think it's incredible to see what God is able to bring. There's a verse that talks about bringing beauty from ashes, and I think that is where you actually see that come to life. And when you witness a woman with all her scars, whether they're visible or invisible, you actually see courage. When you feel like you're looking at courage for the first time, you're seeing this beautiful resilience of the human spirit. You're seeing hope that has refused to die, and it changes the definition of beauty, this airbrush beauty that we talk about in society. And then when you're actually looking at the real thing, suddenly you think, okay, this is it, and this is what that means. And I just think it's absolutely remarkable, and changes the way you see people, and changes the way you see life and yourself, your own story, and the way you view the story of another.
All right, Naomi, thank you very much, but you're going to stay with us after the break, and we're going to ask you, you are from one of Canada's most famous families, and we're going to ask you about that after this. Well, we're back with the director of Wellspring, Naomi Zacharias. And Naomi, in your book, Scent of Water, you write a lot about the experiences of pain that people can use to draw beauty out of. But you still, despite all the experiences and people's encounters with God, you say, I still choose to define God through the Bible. Why?
I think if I were to do it through experience alone, I think it could be dangerous, because without guiding principles, I think if we just evaluate our experiences, we're taking the risk. You're leaving a lot up to your own perception at the time, and I think that can be dangerous. Your perceptions change, but principles do not. And I think the principles laid out in the Bible are something that I can embrace. They're guidelines. They're how I know how to live my life. My experience teaches me how to do that. My experience has not only shown me that that is true, but it has revealed it to me. But if I were to go the other way around, I think I would end up getting myself very confused.
Okay, we've almost run out of time to ask this question. I promised I would ask. You are the daughter of one of Canada's most famous citizens, Ravi Zacharias, the world-known philosopher and Christian apologist. Any downside to being Ravi's daughter?
Probably the biggest downside is I think it could be disappointing. People expect the brains to carry down, and that's not necessarily the truth. But probably the biggest challenge is just growing up in the spotlight. I think any child growing up in a spotlight, you have to learn how to do that when being in a fishbowl and kind of the pressure. But the positive is certainly outweigh the negatives, I would say.
Well, 3 siblings, and we didn't bring your little son Jude on today, but 7 months old. And thank you very much for being with us today.
Thank you. It's been an honor.
And people can learn more about you through our website. Thank you, Naomi.